You think about the current running back situation for the Sooners, not enough. They did not get enough from that position a year ago. We've talked a lot about it, but I think that when you talk to the staff about this group of backs that are on campus right now, and remember, Taylor Tatum's not there yet, so we're not going to include him in this conversation. That the conversation starts with Gavin Sawchuck, and saw Sawchuck a couple weeks back, and he does look a little thicker physically, which I thought was really encouraging. They've got him listed at 5'11", 195, but to me looked like he had added some muscle. I guess the question is, can he make the jump? Or maybe the most important question is, can he stay healthy for an entire offseason and make the physical gains that he needs to make? Because we know the speed's there. When things are clean, the speed is there, but can he become a guy that is a true difference maker that can make something out of nothing multiple times a game? Because that's really what separates backs in my mind. Is there are guys that just, they get what's blocked. They get what's there. And can Gavin Sawchuck be a guy that gets more than what's there? And I really hope he makes the jump, because it sounds like this guy does everything right on and off the field, and keep staying healthy throughout the spring and throughout summer is going to be huge for him, but he needs to improve. He absolutely does.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's interesting with Sawchuck. I think the physical traits, he's got everything that you need. He's powerful when he needs to be. He's elusive in the open field. We know he's got the home run gear for top speed. He can flat out fly. It feels like, and this is not really even just a Sawchuck thing. It's kind of the running back group together. When I think about what Jovantae Barnes and Sawchuck looked like in the Florida State game, going back 2 years ago in the bowl game, I saw a couple of guys that were like running the football offensively, aggressively, attacking, running over guys. And it, like, when you look back, it's like, okay, we're an underdog in this football game. We don't have a lot of our guys. Just, there's really not a whole lot of expectations. Just go out and cut it loose. And that's what we saw. Since that point, I feel like as a running back group, we've been feeling our way around a little bit. Not very assertive, not very aggressive, like trying to make the right play instead of just go, do your thing. And I think, to me, that's the biggest thing with Sawchuck, to cut all of that great athleticism loose. He just needs to go. And I don't know if it was a health thing maybe holding him back, if it was worried about making a mistake, or I don't know. But I think it's fair to say, for a big chunk last year, it just didn't look like it had the same pop. And then it got better and better towards the end of the season. But I mean, to me, that's the biggest thing. Cut it loose, get aggressive. Like, don't run the ball defensively, which is weird to say. I understand, but that's kind of how I feel like we were running the football last season. I think that he's clearly got all the tools, but the health thing is a huge factor. You can't be a soft tissue guy that's always got muscle pulls, and you're missing 2 weeks here and missing a week there, and you're out of training camp. I mean, running back is a rhythm, especially in college. It's like a rhythm position. You need your carries week in, week out. You need to, like, you need to get calloused for the position to be a really like a true top end running back in the SEC. And I think we've got several guys that have that ability. It's just whether or not we get that type of play out of them.
I completely agree. And kind of the last thing on Sawchuck and what we saw from him last season, I kind of felt like until the last couple games of the year, he looked like a golf cart with the governor on it,
Yeah. Yeah.
where
That's right.
it couldn't quite get to where he wanted it to go, or maybe he was hesitant to take it to open it completely up. And my
If you're
hope is
nagged by injury, like that's
right,
how.
right. And there's that hesitation there, like, hey, if I punch the gas, am I going to pull my hammy again?
Mhm.
So I get that, but he needs to get to a place physically where he can play the position as fast as possible.
He won't get to where he wants to be at 3/4 speed.
No,
You
yeah,
just won't get there.
yeah. And his 3/4 speed is fast.
Pretty good.
It's
It's
pretty
pretty good.
good, but we need him at 100. And if he can get there, if he can stay healthy, man, I am interested to see what it looks like. Now, there's there's clearly a big piece of this discussion that is tied in to the offensive line and to what the run game is going to look like as a whole under Seth Luttrell and Joe John Finley. There's also a tight ends piece to it. You know, what are their personnel groupings going to look like? Usually, if you can get in personnel groupings, you can run a couple different concepts when it comes to the run game than you can without those type of bodies on the field. So that all goes into this conversation, but we don't want to make this last 4 hours because I will go down an absolute rabbit hole. But Seth Luttrell and Joe John Finley, part of their job is to figure out what run concepts not only fit these backs the best, but what run concepts fit whatever they end up landing with on the O line. So that's not an easy thing, but that's a piece of all of this. But I think one of the more interesting questions on the roster right now, Ted, is the running back situation starts with Sawchuck. I think right now, if you look at it, he has earned the RB1 label up to this point. But the second running back, that feels very up in the air to me.
Hmm. No, I totally agree.
Like who do we talk about next? Is it Kalib
Well,
Hicks? Is it the transfer Sam Franklin? Jovantae Barnes did not look. Let's be real. He did not look good at all last season.
yeah. Well, and it goes back to the health thing. Uh, Did we ever get like figure out exactly what the surgery he was that he missed spring with the foot?
It was, as far as I know, it was a pretty standard foot surgery. My guess was always fifth metatarsal, and that was something that I had that surgery in high school. And a lot of people have it, and some people have complications with it. I don't know if that was what it was,
Yeah.
but
Well,
you know me, we kind of steer away from the hey man, what's his injury
right.
conversations. But
Well,
he looked like a shell of himself.
yeah. He did from the true freshman year where he was explosive, and again, it's kind of back to the I'm a true freshman. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to go as hard as I possibly can. And you saw that whenever he runs the football. And that's like, okay, hey, once he gets a little bit of polish to his game, some ball security, ups his game in the pass protection aspect, the passing game. Like this is going to be a great back. And he was ever able to hit that full speed again, like we saw his freshman year. That's kind of say is like as a position group last year, we were not nearly as explosive as we needed to be. Guys were feeling their way. And I I don't know what there could be some very good reasoning for that, but that really doesn't matter to me. We just have to get better at the position, become more explosive, and hopefully Barnes is healthy, has put some good time between the injury, the surgery, and he's back to that explosive guy that we saw 2 years ago. Because
Yeah,
that guy
and
could run the football anywhere.
completely agree. What happened to him as a player last year? It was just odd. And I don't know if it was, more than the injury. I don't know if there was something mentally going on. I don't know, but he went from running with a lot of violence to not.
Yeah. Well,
And, and
go
his
ahead.
cuts were, I mean, it didn't look like he could cut.
Mhm.
So can he get back to looking more like he did as a freshman, which is kind of weird to say out loud, but
Well, that's what I was going to say is as, as a freshman, I it's almost like kicker to a degree. When kickers haven't missed a kick, the most confident guys you'll ever see. All of a sudden, when they miss that first kick and there's a little bit of doubt that has crept in, it's never really the same from that point on. And as a freshman, you haven't made any mistakes. You're not carrying any emotional baggage behind you whenever you're asked to go out and compete and do something. You start making you have a big fumble in a game, you have a big mistake that gets your quarterback sacked and ball jarred loose. Like whenever you make some mistakes, it can have an effect on how you play, and you can lose some of that aggressiveness and second guess what you do. I don't know if that's the case with the guys, but you know, there's been something that held them back a little bit last year, and maybe it's just the injury thing, but I don't know. We gotta recapture what we had there.
we'll see. We'll see what he looks like throughout spring, and because you start looking at this running back room, there's a lot of guys now. There's a lot of guys that are going to be battling for snaps, and there's no doubt when you line the running backs up and you just look at them, your eyes are drawn to zero. There's just, I mean, Kalib Hicks, he looks like he should be the best running back on the team. 5'11, 216 pounds is what he's listed at on the spring roster.
Perfect.
He looks fantastic. I had one member of the staff to say he may be too swole, which is a good thing. So you look at his physical build, you look at his quickness, explosiveness, he's got the top end speed that you need. It feels like a no-brainer that'll be a major contributor, but then you start thinking about the types of things that keep young backs off of the field. Now, you've got a lot of stuff going on for college football players, right? But just the football piece that would keep them off the field, it's mental mistakes. It's pass protection, especially like DeMarco is extremely demanding when it comes to knowing your pass protection rules. But if Kalib Hicks can excel in that area, know what he's doing in pass protection, with the way that he looks physically and with how awesome it looks with the running back in number 0, I don't see any way that he's not a big time contributor for this football team. But I guess we'll see, man. I thought we'd see him more last year. We didn't, but he looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I remember going out to training camp last year whenever he was a true freshman and watching inside drill, and that's exactly. I was like, who is that guy? And I totally expected him to, to have some type of impact last season. And I think, in hindsight, it could be a good thing that he didn't, for a bunch of reasons. But just the look, the explosiveness that he has, the physicality, the size, 5'11", 216 pounds is exactly what you want. That is like the perfect running back size. And it's going to be a more physical conference. We know that. And he's got the perfect like size, and he looks like an extremely durable type of guy. I'm excited to see more from him. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on a redshirt freshman year. I you've heard me a million times. I don't expect a whole lot from freshmen whenever they first show up, but he physically has all the tools. You've been here for a year. There's really not a whole lot of excuses anymore. Physically, you can do it, which I know he can. He should be a major contributor in some way.
He just looks different than the other guys. And when
Look
you
too good
watch
to be
him,
standing on the sideline.
yeah, you go out there and you go, you should be on the field. So hopefully Kalib Hicks does everything he needs to do, because this team they need game changers at the skill spots.
Yeah,
And maybe this is the best way to put it. He's got all the common symptoms of a game changer at the running back position when you look
yeah,
at him and
he
when you see
does.
him move. So hopefully he can put it all together. Now, Sam Franklin, the transfer from UT Martin, Ted, he is, first of all, he's listed at 5'10, 200. And they like what they've seen from him in winter workouts, but he is one of the guys on the offense really I'm most interested in seeing, because I just don't really know. He had some impressive plays at UT Martin, but I think it's fair to say that he didn't blow us away with what we watched of him. So I'm so curious to see how he fits into this offense.
Yeah, I, there's some good stuff from him. It's just curious because when he hit the portal, they snapped him up like that. Like it was the first portal edition, I think, or at least one of them that we made. So there's something there that they see, and maybe there's a previous relationship in recruiting or something. But yeah, I, I'm fascinated to see how he fits into the mix. Sounds like the offseason went really good for him. Um, if anything, it's adds some good depth and competition there because I think Sawchuck's got the first little run at it, but outside of that, I think everything's up for grabs.
Oh, I completely agree. When you look at the running back situation outside of Sawchuck, I mean, Kalib Hicks is extremely talented, hasn't done anything. I mean, Jovantae Barnes is as excited as we were about him as a freshman. Last year happened. Like you can't just act like it didn't happen. So he's kind of back to square one with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're gonna have to prove what you got.
Yeah,
So I would say the backs behind him, and we'll see what Sam Franklin can do, but Franklin's got an opportunity for sure. If the other guys don't make the improvement that they need to make, I mean, you can put a veteran guy out there that may not be quite as talented, but is more reliable.
yeah, and has some more miles, and like you said, reliability is. I I I hope we're not in a position where we have to settle on reliability. I mean, ultimately, sometimes you end up there, and that's just how things are. But we are we are way too talented and too explosive at this position. And this, I'm not putting this on Franklin. I'm just, and I totally agree with what you're saying. I just hope that we don't have to settle for reliability, if that makes sense. Like we have guys that are good enough to be explosive at this position, and this could be, should be, frankly, at Oklahoma. We haven't ever been any good being average at running back for the most part. Like Oklahoma's had guys at running back, and it's been the tip of the spear for this program as far as you want to go back. And I'm hoping that we get that again this year. And I know that we've got a super talented group, and everyone offers something a little bit different, which we talk about, we like in a position group. So I mean, I'm excited about it, but there is that, you've got the veteran that's carried the ball a bunch of times in Franklin. That's the reliable guy. I hope we don't have to settle and it doesn't come down to that.
we're going to the SEC, man. We need explosive and talented at the running back position.
Yep.
And maybe Franklin is more talented and more explosive than what we saw on tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he is. I don't know. Can't wait to find out.
Yeah.
But that's where it goes back to Kalib Hicks and to Gavin Sawchuck. Like, Sawchuck has elite speed. Just looking at Kalib Hicks's physical build, that's a guy that needs to be a factor. Like, those guys need to step up and be the guys at the running back spot. And we'll see with Barnes. I just don't know with everything going on there. But yeah, you can't just in this first year in the SEC, especially with all the question marks along the offensive line, I feel like you can't just roll, for lack of a better term, a guy out there at running back. You need a couple dudes.
I agree. The SEC is really no different in this aspect than anywhere else. Like, if you want to go compete to win the conference, you got to have a back. You got to have maybe a couple of backs, and that's what's happened in this conference. And it's really been no different. The Big Ten is the same way. Quarterback is always going to be right there at the top, and running back in college football is probably a close second. And I know receivers are getting more into it and all that stuff, but point is, I think everyone understands how important the running back position is to this defense or this football team.
It's important to the defense. I know you're only always thinking about the defense. The run game is very important to the defense. Now, Xavier Robinson is in early and listed at 6 foot, 228 pounds. So when you just see that on paper, you go, okay, that kind of separates him from the group, right? He would be labeled as the big back, and the coaches have been very pleased. I mean, Venables said it on here. He's done a better job than he thought he would, and with the way that he's transformed his body since arriving in January. So I feel like the one thing he's got going for him is he's just bigger than the other guys. He's got a little bit more girth than the other backs. And if you're a freshman and you're trying to get on the field, one way to do it is have a different skill set than the other guys in your position group. So I don't know if he's a guy that's going to be ready to be the short yardage and goal line type of guy in the fall as a true freshman. It's a big responsibility, but that question begins being answered here in spring ball.
It's a big responsibility, but it's also like really exactly what you want is to be a role guy early in your career. We don't need you worrying about everything. Just keep it narrow, right? This is what we need you for. I think that would go really well for him. And he does have some good size. And I feel like at 228, he's leaned out some, hasn't he? From whatever, like what he was listed at was like 240, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's good. Get the body comp where they want it. And I'm sure he'll probably build from that point, maybe a little bit more slowly. But, if you've got a 230-pound running back that has good explosiveness and good speed, I mean, when we're talking about short yardage, it's 6 or 8 inches for a first down. And there's a difference in tackling a 230-pounder than there is a 200-pounder. There just is. I mean, the mass is harder to stop. So if we could have ourselves a big go-to short yardage and goal line back, that'd be good.
A little force equals mass times acceleration discussion here on the podcast. Don't say we don't teach you stuff, people. Come on.
Hey, as a linebacker, scouting report comes up. First thing I go to, how heavy are the running backs? 195, 200, no big deal. 205, 215, okay. 220, 230, you've got my attention. All right. You've got my attention. Every linebacker is watching that sideline whenever the 230-pound running back checks in. We know exactly who that guy is.
Yeah, I imagine. All right, let's get to call your shot. we asked you guys your strongest opinion right now about OU's running backs. This first one comes from the Tunnel Sooners. Says that we are going to be more than fine and people are overreacting about the running back position. Are people overreacting about the running back position?
Well, I guess it depends. Like, what are they reacting to? If they're reacting to the running back position last season, I don't think they're overreacting. But just because, in my opinion, others may differ, that running back lagged behind last year, doesn't mean that it has to moving forward. I think, I was going to say, I think roster wise, we're in a better position now than we were a year ago. But as I sat here a year ago after watching Sawchuck and Barnes against Florida State and what Barnes looked like through most of the season, I think I felt really, really good about what we were going to have at running back. So, I don't know. We got a 5-star coming in. Sawchuck's coming off of a solid end of the season. We got Hicks. We got Robinson. Like, there's some really good pieces there. We just got to see what it looks like. A lot of it comes down to, like what you said earlier, the offensive line and the tight end position. I think the tight end position is going to be a big improvement overall from what we saw last year, and that could help the running game a lot. But it's going to be up to these guys. Someone's going to have to come from the group, and I'm fairly confident that'll happen.
And then let's not forget, number one running back recruit in the country will be here in the summer. So
yeah,
maybe this discussion changes. I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what to make of it. He looks really good on film, but I don't know. I'm kind of torn. What have you thought of from what you've seen of Taylor Tatum?
I think overall, he's a really good athlete. You think about what he can do on the baseball field. Mm-hmm. I feel like the speed is there. You kind of don't know till they show up when it comes to what I would call the twitch.
Yeah.
Like, is he just a good athlete with really good speed? And it's high school football, even though it's a high level of high school football, or does this guy have the real juice? You don't really know until they get there.
Right.
And I'm hoping he's got the real juice.
He's one of the, he looks great, but he's not one of those guys that you look at and say that everything is fine. He doesn't even need to be here. We don't even need him until training camp. Like,
he's not like a big, muscled up, like finished product type of running back right now, which I think is a good thing. Like, there is room for improvement there when it comes to shaping his body, and I'm sure Schmitty will take care of that during the summer. But yeah, I think that I don't want to say he's raw. That's not the right term, but he's not. Maybe the best way to put it is some of these 5-stars show up and you're like, damn, that guy looks like how much room for physical growth does he have? Taylor Tatum, for me, with what I've seen, that's not the case. Like, I think there is improvement to be made, and it will be made. And that's why I say I don't know what he's going to be as a player, because I don't think he's close to being a finished product physically as a football player.
I think that's what I'm getting at. He's the number one running back of the country, but it's Adrian Peterson is not walking through the door type of guy. You know what I'm saying?
No, he's like, that's not what I've seen, at least.
Yeah. Maybe he is. Hopefully he is, but I don't know. I guess maybe I just haven't seen enough up to this point.
We'll be cool if he was the next Adrian Peterson. That would make things more fun.